Welcome to Profiles of a Caring Community. Our first guest is Liana Michaud, who is our VEX coordinator and one of our lead teachers for the Connecticut STEM Academy. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
So, can you describe a little bit just in general before we get into the details about Connecticut STEM Academy and the different types of programs that we offer?
Sure. So we do after-school programs in elementary schools, middle schools, and occasionally high schools throughout Wallingford. We also do evening classes, Saturday programs, and a lot of summer programs as well, all throughout the STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math related.
And how long have you been a part of the STEM Academy program?
I've been with them for 3 years, nearly.
And what types of programs have you led or taught?
I do a lot of the technology and science since I majored in biology back at Central. So I do helped out with some forensics. I do a lot of coding and computer science, occasionally robotics. Robotics is a big part of what I do.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the robotics side. So we're involved in VEX robotics in both in classes and competition. So can you describe a little bit what VEX robotics is generally, and then talk a little bit about what the Academy has done with that?
Yeah, so VEX is a platform for robotics that a lot of high schools use. We use a platform called VEX IQ, which is more oriented to middle schoolers. It's a little bit more pre-made parts, and so you don't have to manufacture anything or have necessarily those kind of resources, but still be able to participate in the competitions. Yeah. Students get a kit that will let them make just the most basic model of a robot to complete a task given by VEX IQ. It comes down to us. And they try to alter the robot to most efficiently complete the task and score the most points in a competition setting.
And those are done individually, or teams of kids work together on those?
Usually teams of 3 to 6. We're trying to keep them smaller teams, but we're building up to that.
So how long have we been involved in VEX with this from STEM Academy's perspective?
We've had a VEX program for 2 years.
So, and it's been highly successful, at least at the competitive level. Can you talk a little bit about that and show us some of the hardware that you brought?
Yeah. So last year was the first year with VEX, and we had, I believe, 2 teams qualify for Worlds, so World Championships. Unfortunately, we couldn't go last year, but this year they qualified again. One was the same team from last year that stuck with it, and this time they did go to Worlds and they placed in that competition.
That sounds pretty spectacular for the short time. And how old were these students?
They are at the oldest 8th grade, so only middle school age students.
Great. And where were the Worlds held this year?
I believe
Lexington, Kentucky?
Yeah, I was going to say Kentucky.
Think so? Yeah. And how many, give us an idea of how big that is in terms of the competition.
They showed me some images last night. It is a massive facility. They had fireworks and lasers and, room for tractor trailers within this building. They said it was about a half-mile long.
Wow. And how many teams approximately were they competing against?
Thousands.
And where did they place?
They were seeded to come in somewhere in the thousands going in, meaning that was their anticipated rank based on their previous scores in other competitions. They came in somewhere in the 100 range.
Wow.
In the world.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's incredible.
For the first time.
Yeah.
At that level, that's crazy. So in order to get there, they had to compete at the state level first?
They did, yep.
And they won that competition?
This team that went to Worlds did not win that competition.
Okay.
They won a separate award, however, for the design of their robot being so innovative. They won what's called the Design Award, which involved interviews from the judges individually. They also looked at their engineering notebook to make sure that everything was relevant to each student, so it wasn't like one student did everything and nobody else knew anything about it. They all understood the plan and built up to it and had just an incredible robot. Very creative design.
So what do we have here?
So these are the trophies from last year. This is the design award that qualified them for Worlds last year in 2016.
Okay.
And then the larger ones are from this year. Two of them are from the one team that went to Worlds, and one is from another team that won the state competition. So this one is the design award that they won, and this is the medal that they got for participating in Worlds.
That's great. Tremendous.
Pretty impressive for some 12-year-olds.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So we are continuing the VEX program, and there's at least that's one of the summer activities, one of the summer camp programs that we have. Can you talk a little bit about what's coming up in the summer?
Yeah, so the robotics camp that we have is, I believe, a half-day program that runs for 1 week. It will touch upon other forms of robotics, like Ozobots, Spheros, some coding, but it will also involve VEX IQ in that we'll probably have them exploring the basic robot, maybe doing some programming. And it's a really good opportunity if students are interested in the VEX IQ program but are not sure if they want to commit, because it is a big commitment. It's a club. So it's a good kind of, you can hone your skills there or just get kind of a feel for what it will be like and get some practice and maybe even potentially a head start for the season.
Great.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that this summer we have been provided space at Wallingford Parks and Rec for at least 1 week and maybe longer for the summer programs. Can you talk a little bit about what's going to happen there?
Yeah, so the space we have is brand new to us and we're very excited. It should be occupied for about 8 weeks throughout the summer. We have kind of a running program called STEM Fun. Basically every week is a program for 4 days out of the week that will be a different topic each week. So 1 week is flight, 1 week is rocketry, 1 week is engineering, 1 week is robotics, etc.
And how many kids are able to participate in any given week? Do you know roughly what the...
I don't know the limits there, but I would anticipate it being a normal class size of probably about 20 to 30, 15 to 30, depending on what kind of interest we have.
So you mentioned, in addition to the camps, both after school and evening programs that you've done in the past, and I think we're going to continue those. So can you talk a little about what programs happen during the school year, after school, and then the evening programs, what those look like? Because I think families are involved in those, parents too. Yeah,
so this past year we did quite a few evening programs at the Spanish community of Wallingford, which is very kindly our host for the time being while we wait for new space. It's a really nice area, and we're able to do a lot of programs out of there. We did a variety of STEM challenges. The robotics team was able to come in there and work in evenings when they wanted extra time, just voluntarily.
Can you talk a little about what a STEM challenge is, what that means?
Yeah, so STEM challenges we generally do, usually we focus on engineering challenges or science challenges. We would give a time frame, usually 1 class period, and give them a task. And a lot of times it's something that doesn't have a clear answer or a clear solution, and we like to see what path students can come up with, what teamwork they can use to get to a solution to solve a problem. For example, we have earthquake tables. So they build a little earthquake simulating table. It's like a Lego board and some bouncy balls, and it makes a good shake. And we ask students, okay, how can you build a structure out of paper that will withstand this earthquake? And they'll work together for the class and see what they can come up with, and at the end they'll test, they'll go back and fix it, test it again, come up with some kind of finished product.
That sounds pretty intriguing for kids.
We also do the Saturday programs. I know one that was very successful this year, aside from VEX, which did take place on Saturdays as well, was Super Science Kids, which helped, did all kinds of STEM activities, kind of across the board. Mostly science focused just for that particular program, and it had a very large participation from the Spanish community itself, which was very nice.
How about on the parent side? How do they get involved if they're interested?
In programs themselves or in...
Yeah, either or, helping out with the existing programs.
We've had some really great parents being involved. We always welcome involvement from parents. We had several of the VEX team's coaches were parents who had volunteered to come in. We as educators within STEM are mostly teachers. We have backgrounds in science and some of us technology education, but we don't see a lot of, we don't have any engineers on our staff. So it was really nice. We had some parent volunteers who were actually engineers in their trade, and they came in and were able to assist the students in some of that engineering mindedness that we couldn't really offer. And we've picked up a lot of that, and it was really incredible, like professional development for us just from volunteering parents. So we always welcome them to come in to show us new things, to share their knowledge with us and help us build the program a bit.
That's great. So I know you're not only in Wallingford, but you've kind of reached out to other communities. What's the scope of those programs? Are they similar? Are they different in type and kind from what you do here? Or are they somewhat the same?
It does depend. A lot of our range is associated with our family STEM nights, which are one-night events usually that in which we set up stations in a school. All of our activities will showcase as much as we possibly can for students and their families to come in the evening and participate in a wide range of STEM activities. So we'll bring our rockets, the rocket launchers, we'll bring STEM challenges like the earthquake tables, we'll do some robotics, and just as much as we can just to give everyone a chance and their families to come in and interact with that. So that gives us a lot of scope because a lot of schools are interested in having just that one-time event.
So parents are actually participating hands-on, siblings if they
Absolutely.
want. Yeah, great.
But we also have a lot of after-school programs now expanding too. So I know that we have gone as far as Bridgeport and Stratford, all the way up to Middletown and New Britain and Berlin. So we have, at this point, we have a pretty good range.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So are there new, either new programs or add-ons to the existing ones coming up this next year that might be different than what we've done in the past?
In regards to location and during the school year, I'm not totally certain. I know that we're in the process of scheduling things right now. I do, however, know that we have some very new topics for our summer camps. For example, we're starting a film creation camp, which I don't believe we've touched upon before.
What will that do?
They'll be working in just video creation, so they'll be designing some kind of film. I'm not the teacher for that, so I'm not totally certain what direction it'll be going, but that's something that's new to us. We'll also have forensic law, and so there are some new topics we're touching upon because we want to make sure we don't get, we want to fill that STEM range of topics as much as possible.
All those programs are going to be offered at the Park and Rec Department as part of the summer program?
Yeah, all the ones I just said, yeah.
So and those are in the brochure.
Yep.
So if people are interested, they can just look up in the Park and Rec brochure, which is either online or they can get a hold of a hard copy.
Yes.
And the registration. Now you have a website for the academy?
We do, yeah, ctstemacademy.org. And this in and of itself is available, linked to that website, as well as through the Parks and Rec website itself.
Well, Liana, thanks so much for coming and explaining for this. I think kids will be very intrigued by what they have to look forward to this summer. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll be back. Welcome back. Our guest is Sneha Patidar, who is the Assistant Program Coordinator from Wallingford Youth and Social Services. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So graduation for high school is just around the corner and the summer begins. And I know one of the programs that you oversee is the Summer Youth Employment Program. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that what it is, how people can apply, and when it starts, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So the Summer Youth Employment Program is a program here in Wallingford for Wallingford kids, specifically high schoolers between the ages of 14 and 21, that give them the first job experience. And this is very much a supportive program, and I say supportive because from the Youth and Social Services side, I'm usually their job coach, so when they come through us and they apply for this program, it's very intensive that I'll give them whatever notes and support they need from our end to have that first job experience so they're comfortable. And from the worksite side, they have a supervisor who's very understanding and supportive that this is their first job, and they kind of walk you through your day-to-day activities, like the jobs that you would have, and give you feedback on what you can improve, what to expect if you were actually hired. And it's just very hands-on and supportive for the student who applies. The program is run out of the Youth and Social Services. We work very closely with the schools, specifically the guidance departments and the social workers, because there's specific criteria for a student to apply for this program.
Can you explain some of that?
Sure. So the students need to be between 14 and 21, as I said earlier, and to be eligible for this program, it's either a low-income family, if you receive free or reduced lunch from schools, if you have a 504 plan or an IEP, or a documented disability. We also take students who are foster kids or who have a DCF case manager. And it's very much, like I said, a supportive program. So we work with the guidance department. They'll let you know if you qualify for the program. Any specific questions that you have, I would be more than happy to sit down and chat in detail about it. Like I said, I work at the Youth and Social Services, so our number is 203-294-2175.
So you mentioned the job coaching thing. So they're paid positions?
Yes, so this is a paid position. They get paid minimum wage. They are allowed to work up to 19 hours a week. Typically, this program runs for 6 weeks, so we start it right after July 1st and run it to just about before school starts. It really depends on the funding that we receive from the state. So sometimes if we have extra funding left at the end of the month, some of the students can work through the school year for a couple more weeks until we run out of that funding. But they get minimum wage, which is $10.10, and with any of the work sites that they're placed at, they'll get at least 19 hours a week.
So let's talk a little about the placement piece, because you mentioned that it's kind of their first real job experience. So do they go through an interview process here? How do you decide where they're going to work?
So we do go through an interview process because I feel that that's important for kids who this is their first time job experience. It's not as intense as a normal job interview, so it's a little more laid back where I will give them feedback. But I ask them questions about what their interests are, what their hobbies are, if they have plans after high school, like what field they're interested in going through. And I really cater it to what they're interested in. So usually we do start out with a rough list of work sites, and then if there's jobs that kids are interested in that they aren't on the list, I'd be more than happy to reach out as long as those businesses or organizations are within Wallingford.
So once they're selected for a position, there's a information interview process or orientation process?
So we do an orientation. I let the job sites know that we were able to match someone to fill the position. And if the student accepts that this does fit their timeline and what they're looking for, I go through an intensive orientation with the child and the parent. So it's usually about 2 hours, and I go through everything from etiquette to how to dress for your first day, what to expect, certain behaviors that are acceptable and behaviors that aren't acceptable. I go through any questions that the child may have, if they're worried about anything for the first day or if there's anything concerning. We talk about all of that in orientation, so I want to make them feel as comfortable as possible when they go in for the first day.
That's great. So let's look at it from the side of the employer. So you mentioned that there's funding for the program, so the business that's involved doesn't pay the salary, it's paid through the funding that you receive?
Yes. So when I reach out to businesses, I let them know that they're basically getting an extra set of hands for free. We cover the cost of the child working there. The only thing we ask is that there is a supervisor that works with them more hands-on, and that they get the experience that an actual person would get if they were hired. And then every week I check in with the student, so I do weekly work site visits. So I'll speak with the student to see how their experience is going, and I'll speak with the supervisor to see if there's anything concerning on their end, if there's anything that we need to intervene with or sit and chat with the student. So I very much cater it to both the student and the supervisor.
So payroll expenses or any other issues are covered by the program and not by the employer?
Yes, covered by the program and not by the employer.
So if there were businesses that were out there watching this and they have interest in the program, maybe they thought about it or never heard of it before, how would they reach out to you to have a discussion about possibly having a slot available for a student?
So they could contact the Youth and Social Services, and they could either reach me, or if I'm not here, they could leave a message for me and I get back to them as soon as possible. And I'd sit down and have a meeting with them and just explain all the fine details of what this program really entitles.
So that sounds pretty positive for a business that has an interest in having an extra set of hands at basically no cost to them. What are some of the issues that you've learned in terms of either the student side or the employer side based on the previous years that might be helpful to people that have an interest in doing this, some of the things that they may not be thinking about?
So one of the most common issues that we see are actually the parents, because they're too involved with it. So the student is very much responsible for themselves. If they're applying for this job, they're pretty responsible in general.
So no parents in the interview?
No parents in the interview,
Gotcha.
no. But they know, because they show up to orientation, they know exactly what their child is signing up for and what they're signing up for, because a lot of the times the parents are driving the student there. But what I find most common is that the parents are usually the ones calling the supervisor to check in to see how their child is doing, or calling to call their kid out sick, or let the supervisor know that the child will be going on vacation from this date to this date. And what I really emphasize in orientation is you need to let the child take the reins.
Right.
I really encourage the child to get in the habit of calling out sick yourself or notifying your employer ahead of time if you need the day off or if you need to change your schedule or anything like that. I really put the responsibility on the child, because that's how it would be in a real work site.
So if student interested in the applications, they're available at the two high schools?
Yes, so they could either pick it up from the Youth and Social Services,
Yeah.
or the applications are in the guidance department at Sheehan High School,
Okay.
or Mrs. Reeves, who works for the career centers at Lyman Hall, has the applications. And I've sat with them, and they know how this program works and what to qualify for, so they should
Right.
be able to answer any questions that students have.
I assume the parents would be involved or need to be involved in the application process, filling that out with financial information.
Yes,
and the other
so with
issues.
the application itself, because this is a state-run program, there are certain documents that need to be included. So that includes your birth certificate, your social security card, proof of residency in Wallingford, and the most important aspect of it is the family income. So if the child isn't a 504 student or an IEP student, they have to include all the income that's in the household. That's to see if they qualify for the program financially. Because as we stated before, it is geared more towards low-income families.
So we have a minute left. Can you just name some of the types of activities, programs, jobs that kids have had in the past?
Sure. In the past, we've had the public library, the assessor's office, the Spanish community of Wallingford. We've had the STEM camps. They're so eager to have new students come on board and to teach them and train them. We've worked with the Wallingford Daycare Center, the Boys and Girls Club. We've had the Senior Center, Taylor Rental. We've had the Parks and Recs before, and we've also had, I'm trying to think of what more summer camps, especially through the Park and Rec as well.
I think we've had at the animal shelter in the past.
Yes, we've had the animal shelter. We've had staff office positions through the assessor's office. We've actually taken on 2 students in the youth and social services as well. So there's a lot of variety that students can pick from.
So I just want to encourage businesses, if you have a potential position this summer, you're looking to hire a student, this is a cost-effective way to do it, and certainly valuable in terms of what the educational experience can be for the students. Thank you so much for being with us today. That's great information.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us.